What is going on, Lunatic Fringe? Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. No technical analysis. I'm going to be interviewing Rexyz. If you don't know who that is, he was one of the original founders of the Steering Commission. That Steering Commission eventually became the Terra Rebels. If you've been around for any length of time, you know the Rebels of legend: Ed Kim, Alex Forshaw, Zeradar. You knew some of these guys, but Rexyz left a little bit early, and he moved on and created Terraport.finance. About a year ago, Terraport.finance was hacked for the tune of $4 million, funds they are still trying to recover to this day. And there's a lot of interesting pieces in here to unpack. So I'm going to send this video out in its entirety. It's about an hour and a half long, so there's a lot of information to unpack. Now, if you like this type of content, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, the bell to be notified of future content, and grab yourself a bag of popcorn because you're about to listen to one of the original guys around the Luna Classic system when it collapsed and how they put the pieces back together. And if you listen real close, you might even hear something about a Repeg that might be coming a lot sooner than you think. Sit back and enjoy, and thank you so much for tuning in. What is going on, Lunatic Fringe? It's your man Bleaves here, and I am here with Rexyz. You may remember this name. You probably know this name if you're involved in Terra Luna Classic. This is one of the OGs that got started way back in the day. This is an old Terra Rebel original. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this was the guy that kept everybody tight-lipped so that there was only one single voice. So, without further ado, Rex, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And thanks for giving us the time to have a chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to confirm here, you were one of the original Terra Rebels, along with Ed Kim and Zeradar and Alex Forshaw and some of these other guys, before you broke away and started to take your own lane in the Terra Classic universe. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I kind of joined Terra Rebels before it was even called Terra Rebels. They were still working out what the name was going to be then. And I was part of the steering group, certainly in the early days, anyway.
Incredible. So, but you left and moved on, and then you got involved in Terra C Vita or Vita. Do you say? I say Vita.
Yeah, I say Vita as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
You got
seems,
into Terra
I
C
call it,
Vita?
yeah, I call it Terra Vita with like a silent C, but I write it with a C in, and the C standing for classic, Terra standing for Terra, and Vita standing for life, and that's what the name's all about. It's about bringing life to Terra, making Terra a lively place to be, and making sure that it's got a sustainable long life as well. So Terra Vita, it's more of a mission statement rather than the name of the team, let's say.
And that led to Terraport Finance. Is that right? That was the
Yeah,
impetus for it.
yeah. In the early days when I left Terra Rebels, uh, we we'd done a kind of bit of analysis on what the chain's needs were, and there's a few elements that we thought was crucial to be included in any recovery. And one of those was to be able to give developers the opportunity to have their projects kind of traded through their coins, native ones to Terra Classic, and the other was to allow an extra way for money to come into Terra Classic as well. So a DEX seemed to be the ideal solution to that.
Right. And that's where Terraport.finance came from. And now the governance token there is the cash tag TERRA. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't have picked a better name for that, could we? We spent a long time trying to think of the name of that token, and then all of a sudden, one of the devs said, "Well, what about this? Has it been taken?" So Terra, yeah, that's
Don't
the
know
governance
where it
token.
came from.
But it just seemed to fit a tree.
Yeah.
So,
So
so Terra's the tag, if you like, but Terraport is the actual name of the token.
all right. And for those of you that are wondering, this is, you guys are a validator. Let me see if I can pull this up. You are a validator, Terra Vita. And do you have a ranking? Is there, were you guys kind of in this whole ecosystem, if you will? By the way, I did pull
Yeah,
up Station for this.
yeah. So I'm not sure what site you're on there, but if you go to validator.info, I think it is, and there's various other sites there. I actually just tweeted about this, or X this, whatever you like to call it, a few days ago and basically thanked all the applications out there and sites where we're listed. I think there's about half a dozen.
Yeah.
So yeah, validator info. I think that seems to be a popular one amongst the
Currently ranked
community.
number 14.
Yeah, it looks like we've just gone down one today. So yeah, 13 or 14 we've been just recently.
Yeah. So, but the purpose behind what you're doing is in support of Terra Luna Classic and the blockchain. And famously, we all know what happened. We don't have to go rehash that. But tell me a little bit about your early days. What was it like getting into this early on? There were names that were kind of out there. There was Ed Kim, Alex Forshaw, Zeradar, Vegas. There was a bunch of different names that we all kind of saw. And in our frenzy, some of us, myself, proud degen, we just saw the collapse of an incredible ecosystem through what to us still to this day really looks like nefarious means from a bad third party actor, which in my estimation, based on the way lawsuits are playing out right now for Terraform Labs in the United States, was Jump Crypto Trading, along with a couple of partners. I want to say that Zach XBT pointed out, I want to say Citadel. There was a bunch of different actors that were involved in the collapse of this entire ecosystem. What fascinated you by and what got you into this to begin with?
Oh, that's a good question. There's quite a number of things really. In the absolute beginning, which was about 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, I was sat in the driveway with my son in the car, who was about 15. And he says, "Dad, can you give us a couple of grand to buy some Bitcoin?" And and I says to him, I'd heard this because he'd been involved with this kind of stuff before. And I says, "You want me to give you a couple of £1,000 to buy some Bitcoin?" He says, "Yeah, it's worth something like about $700 at the minute." Or that gives you however many years ago. That gives you an idea of how long ago it was. And I said, "Right." I said, "Well, if I buy this," I said, "how do I get my money back out?" And we sat in the car, and it wasn't an easy thing to kind of describe Mondays. And like I say, it was only about 15, bless him. So I says, "Well, Matt," I says, "when we can get down to the shop and you can buy some milk and bread with it, I'll be interested." Um, yeah, oh dear. I should have listened to him, shouldn't I? We often have this
Yeah.
conversation now. Um, so that originally kind of got me interested. And then as things went on, as time went on, crypto became more and more well known, if you like. And in January 2021, my eldest son, the Bitcoin son, if you like, he got diagnosed with a brain tumor, and it spread to his spine, and it was considered grade 4 by the World Health Organization. And he hadn't got long to live. Fortunately, he still is. He had brain surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy. It's been a hell of a journey for him. But he's still here. It's the treatment took away his ability to walk. He's getting there now. But where this links to this story is that as a 19-year-old to go through that, it's very easy to want to give up. And I wanted to show him that you don't give up on something. And at that time, I think it was around about that time. I think it was the start of the no, sorry, sorry. At that time, I wanted to show him that you don't give up. So there's a couple of things I did, and then about a year on, Ukraine was invaded by Russia, and I was working out because I gave up work to look after my son, and I thought, if I could just make a bit of money every day, I don't need a lot, then that'll work out fine for us. And I started looking at crypto, and I started doing technical analysis and all this kind of stuff. And that's when I became aware of Luna. So I bought it before the DPEG. Before the DPEG, I used TC. I didn't spend thousands. Well, I did spend a few thousands, but not tens or hundreds of thousands. And then it started to kind of crash a bit. I didn't think that at the time. I just thought, well, it's volatile. And I bought it all the way down to, literally all the way down to 8 zeros. And I can remember sat at home in the chair, and I did what an Englishman does at 4:30 in the morning, thinking, right, now what happens? I went and made a cup of tea. And
The old standby.
Yeah, and I thought, right, crikey. You hear about these things, like, Polly Peck back in the day. But I thought, now what happens? And I analysed it, and for about 15 minutes it was at 8 zeros, and then it gradually started to come up and go down. And I thought, hang on, this has been traded. So, I was lucky. I managed to buy back in when it was at 6 zeros and 56. You could only buy $9 worth at a time then.
Yeah.
So I kind of pretty much got back what I'd lost, if you like.
Yeah.
However, just prior to Luna, what kind of got me really into the crypto was Ukraine being invaded by Russia.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd got a personal trainer at them days as well, and his wife happened to be Russian, and she couldn't sell a house because of some kind of restrictions. I think it was to do with the war. However, she could do it through using cryptocurrencies or something like that. And I thought, this is interesting. This might be where you get mass adoption of crypto. And that's what really kind of got me interested. So those kind of two events kind of together. And then as time kind of moved forward, and obviously it crashed and it started to bounce back a bit, I was watching a lot of YouTubers, if you like, and reports, and I noticed that the community started to drift off. It became apparent that people thought, well, there's nobody working on this. So are we just basically just throwing money into a hole? So I set out trying to work out what was happening, and I teamed up with somebody in the community, and we promoted very heavily a Twitter person at that time and a YouTuber who just kind of started, to get them noticed that if anybody from a development group kind of wanted to get recognised on Twitter, they'd probably go to this person. And we shilled this person endlessly for about 2 or 3 weeks. And that was Happy Catty Crypto, ironically. So there we go. I'm not saying, where's the secret of of where he's kind of got to, but we certainly have. I don't think he got treble figures as kind of followers back then. I'm not too sure, but he certainly was very early on. So yeah, I noticed somebody kind of looked a bit like a developer, kind of chatting on Twitter with them, and I contacted them, and they ended up ending up in the middle of the Terra Rebels kind of Discord server. I've never been on a Discord server before. It's I'm, like I say, used to talking in the boardroom, and the IT department and stuff. They'll do all this kind of thing. So that was quite interesting. And what I'd kind of come up with was, I said, look, if there's some developers here, I said, there's some things they need to address. And one of those things is nobody knows that there's anybody there. So you need to create some kind of Twitter page or something to say, look, Terra Classic has been worked on. Any problems there have been addressed, and it'll just give people a bit of confidence. And I'd kind of developed a rudimentary kind of business plan. So I guess that's how I ended up being on the steering group. Within a few days, maybe a week or so, there was a bit of a vote what the team was going to be called, and the Terra Rebels was chosen. I must admit I wasn't a fan of it for a start, but then after a few days, I thought, oh no, it's with like a marketing hat on. I thought you can do a fair bit with Terra Rebels, so anyway, it stuck, and
were you going to go for Terra Empire or Terra Darth Vader's or something like that? I mean, everybody loves the Rebels.
Yeah, I can't remember that. It'd be something boring that I was going to come up with. It'd be something logical and boring. It wasn't as passionate as Terra Rebels. But anyway, that's it went to the vote. It won the vote, and that's why they ended up kind of calling themselves that. So as part of the steering group, I can't remember how many of us was in there at the time. I think it was about half a dozen. There was Raider, Zaradar, myself. There was Clan, who was basically in the Terra Rebels Discord, if you like. And there was another couple. I can't remember off the top of my head. So, and Ed Kim, he wasn't on the steering group. He was basically working away in the lab, so to speak, trying to find solutions. And to be quite honest, that's what Ed likes. Although being an associate professor, you need to be able to communicate with people, obviously, very well. It wasn't the kind of thing that drove him. And politics was, his nemesis, if you like.
Yeah.
Just wanted to deliver change. So as time went on, there was various kind of votes that was had. You've got people in the community that were trying to rally people around, and one of the ways that they were being rallied was through the generation of the burn narrative. And Vegas was a big proponent of that. And it seemed at the time it seemed to be a reasonable approach to have some kind of burn narrative. I mean, after all, when you've got 7 trillion LUNC.
Yeah, 6.9 trillion at the
Yeah,
top. Yeah, 6.994.
it kind of lends itself to burn being quite important in a lot of people's minds. So there's some reasonable kind of logic there. However, in, let's call it the developers lab, I don't think really any of the serious developers thought it was a good thing to do, and I don't think Ed was a big supporter of it. I don't think Zaradar was, Raider, or virtually any of them. I mean, I'm not a developer kind of from a technical perspective, if you like. But yeah, those from more of a technically informed position, they didn't think it was a positive thing to do. However, it had been voted in through governance, and the view at that time was Terra Rebels should be here to deliver governance, and we should be the kind of the saviors of governance, if you like.
Right.
So if the community is asked for a burn tax, then that's what we're going to have to try to deliver, and that's how it came up. So it soon became apparent once it was kind of delivered that it wasn't the best thing for the chain. A lot of the promises that was alleged promises that was kind of delivered didn't plan out. There was some developers that said at the rate of burns that they'd projected, it could take hundreds, if not thousands, of years to burn Terra Classic down. And there was probably, as time's gone on, we'll probably have them views kind of more justified, if you like. However, anybody, I think the original proposal was that Vegas put up, I think, was for it to burn to 10 billion.
Yeah.
Well, Terra Classic was of so low value, you can have 10 billion in one wallet. As long as somebody's got 10 billion and don't spend it, well, you're never going to get beneath that. So it was never realistic. And anybody that would really think about this and and do some basic maths would soon work out, well, actually, that's it's a very unlikely thing to ever be able to achieve. So there we go. So as time kind of went on, there was a lot of discussion about what was good and bad about the burn tax, and should it be raised, should it be lowered, and so on, and various ideas were tried out. At this point, there was a lot of internal strife in the Terra Rebels, and there was people that was kind of vying for power. And at one point, I kind of got voted out the steering group. And I'm the kind of person I've got a very strong moral compass, and I believe in doing what's kind of right. So I was voted out for having an opinion on something. I can't remember what it was about now. However, I actually got the Twitter account. I kind of set it up, and there was an immense amount of pressure put on me to what they said. Often the phrase would be "hand over the keys" and this, that, and the other. But I said, well, I'll only hand them over once we deliver what the community's asked for. And at that time, it was to re-establish staking and to get the burn tax out. And there's so much discussion about what people wanted to do with Twitter. And when we was in the steering group, we'd very much agreed that we would go for quality in terms of tweeting rather than quantity. So any tweet that was released had to be agreed through the steering group. And even when I wasn't in the steering group, I was still kind of delivering what they call the head of marketing role.
Yeah.
But I was kind of doing it, by someone else, I suppose you might say, because I was the person that had kind of got all the information on the ecosystem and like I said, the Twitter account and various other things. So after a while, it became quite, I'm going to say, a bit of a hot place to be. It's some people would use the word toxic, if you like. Yeah, anyway, that's probably the best way to kind of describe it. But it started out with a lot of really well-meaning people wanting to make a difference, but then I think it kind of felt that they'd reached an element of fame, and some people wanted to rise to the top. So what my view was back then was, I thought, look, we need to rescue Terra Classic, and there's certain things that need to be done. And part of that was that I thought that the developers would need support. So I came up with Terra Vita as an alternative kind of group, if you like. And because at that time you couldn't start new validators, I'd made an agreement with the previous provider of a validator that we kind of rebrand it with our team's name, if you like, or branding. And then the proceeds of that would go to support Terra Rebels, which is quite ironic, really, isn't it, as things have panned out. So we set up a registered charity in America, and the money was going to go from the validator because we thought we'd get a fair amount of following. And we'd also created a shop as well, which never really got off the ground, but that was the intention. And the money would go through the charity. Like I said, the charity was registered, and then by providing grants to Terror Rebels, we could fund them, and that would enable development to continue. However, we made this proposal to Terror Rebels, and it kind of got voted out. And I think one of the reasons it got voted out was that we didn't want to just give vast amount of money to a group of people. We wanted to demonstrate that there's value for money. So we said, look, you tell us what needs to be done on the chain from a technical perspective. We'll create a grant for it. And then providing you deliver the outcomes that within that grant, which will be what you've pretty much set yourself, then we can release the payment. So then, any kind of auditing that we have to go through, it'll all be above board, and, it'll help everybody. However, that didn't seem to go down very well, which, I'll let people draw their own kind of conclusions to that. But for me, I thought it was a very open and honest way of going about things. Coincidentally, with Terra Classic at the minute, we're going for the paper jobs kind of approach. And that's, it's a bit of a tricky patch it's going through at the minute. But, I think that's pretty much what I tried to deliver for Terra Rebels, 18 months ago, however long it was. But anyway, there we go. So then shortly after that, there was discussion about Neblio, I think it was at the time, providing some kind of funding to Terra Rebels. And I didn't agree with this because I thought, well, we should be about Terra Classic, not another chain. And I just saw that as an approach to kind of take some of the liquidity out of Terra Classic. So it didn't sit comfortably with me. And when I asked, a couple in the steering group for some evidence to do with Neblio working with us, there's nothing forthcoming because it was made out that this was with the blessing of Binance and it was supported by them, but as it turned out, it wasn't. I mean, they ended up sending a cease and desist letter to Terror Rebels for something that wasn't real. So prior to this, I decided I'd kind of had enough. I'd asked the question, can you give us some kind of evidence to who's supporting this? From Binance, I said, what are they? A marketing executive? Are they?
Let me interrupt to point out that you were right, and everybody was right in their concern for Neblio. Neblio has a $200,000 market cap right now, with $40,000 in trade volume, ranking them outside of the top 2,000 cryptos.
Yeah, well, there you go. It wasn't very good coin to kind of partner up with, was it? It just never added up in the first place. But like I say, risk management is kind of my background, and I ask lots of questions, and due diligence is really important to me. And when you ask somebody a very open question and a very easy question to answer, and they don't, that raises alerts for me. So, I said, I said to Vegas, and I think it was Raider at the time, I said, look, can you tell me, if you can't tell me who it is that you're dealing with Binance, who's suggested this, who's kind of pushing Neblio to kind of sponsor Terror Rebels.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea of their status? Was it a director? Was it a marketing executive? I said, was it manager? Was it the janitor? I mean, who was it? And they wouldn't answer. And I thought, you won't be giving the game away if you said, it's an unofficial kind of tip from, I don't know, an executive, but we can't give his name. They wouldn't even go that far. So I thought, I'm a bit dubious about this. So it just seemed ethically right to me. So we kind of, I kind of resigned from there, if I like, and we decided to go different ways. Just prior to that, ironically, there was what used to happen in Terror Rebels is you'd get people vying for power. Yeah. So it wasn't unusual for somebody to change all the privileges on the GitHub so that somebody else became in charge of it. And then somebody else would manage to get them privileges back, and then they'd throw the other person off, and all this kind of stuff happened. And towards the end, there was a big problem with the kind of steering group, and it all kind of fell apart, really. And I can remember Ed at the time, and there's a chap called Maventus who was, real honest, honourable guy. They said to us, why don't you lead the Terror Rebels? I said, because I don't want to. I said I could do, if people wanted me to, but I said, I'm not interested in it. And they said, well, that's why we think you'd be the best person for it. because you're the only one who doesn't seem to want the power.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if you wanted me to, I'd have to be voted in. I said, I'm not. Otherwise, it looks like there's a coup. And I thought, well, that won't happen because people didn't like, or a lot of people didn't like how I spoke. I'm not into this kind of moon boy language and stuff like that. I'm into being technically accurate and making logical decisions, and looking at the long term picture, if you like, which didn't necessarily kind of sit comfortably with many people there. But yeah, so anyway, so that's how Terra Vita came about, and that's how I came to leave them, if you like. So yeah, so it's set up to in the first instance really to provide a funding platform for Terra Rebels.
And that evolved into Terraport Finance.
Yeah, so when I left Terra Rebels, I was thinking, look, there's got to be a better way to this. You need to have trust. So I set about trying to get the community of people that had kind of started to follow us to have faith in what I have to say. And to do that, you've just got to be honest about everything, and you've got to be truthful, and you've got to work on facts rather than feelings. And some developers got in touch with me, and they said, look, you seem to be one of the few really serious people in Terra Classic, and we want somebody to kind of work with. And these guys were Italian developers. They didn't speak English as a native language, so that's something else that I guess made me appeal more to them. And then Frag and a few others kind of got in touch with us as well and said, look, we like what you talk about and what your vision is, and we'd like to be part of that. And we kind of stuck together pretty much since. So it's I mean, they call me the boss or the leader or things like this, or which kind of makes me chuckle because I don't actually look at myself like that. I have various ways of kind of describing it, but I kind of consider myself a bit like a plumber. Where there's a problem, I'll fix it, and if we need a new connection somewhere, I'll find the connection. I'll make sure it's piping in the right kind of information. So it's, which is more like the classical value that a kind of director tends to give. You tend to empower people beneath you, tend to help give them the resources, and the guidance, if you like, to help them be the best that they can be. And I guess that's the role that I am. So I'm always looking for ways to improve things, and to make them kind of connections and help the team progress. So effectively, you could say we're a bit like and it's an overused term, you could say we're a bit like a DAO, in terms of often it'll be referred to me, well, what do you think, Rex? But ultimately, it's down to the person that's tasked with that particular aspect of the team for them to deliver it. They're empowered to make the decisions. Okay, and if that person needs help from the rest of the team, then the rest of the team kind of digs in, if you like.
Yeah.
So it works very well. So we're really fortunate. We've got some fantastic connections all over the community. I think generally speaking, those within the community that can take a more mature look at what we're trying to deliver as a team tend to get on pretty well with us. You'll never see us kind of tweet saying we're going to be to the moon tomorrow and look to $1 and stuff like this. We tweet very factual things. So
that's my job.
Yeah, and you'll do it far better than me. So, for instance, with Terraport, as more projects come onto it, we will announce they're there, maybe talk a little bit about them. We won't necessarily promote them as such because that's for them to kind of take over that promotion. However, from a factual viewpoint, yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunately we can't vet every project that goes on Terraport, just as Binance, can't those that sit on the Binance Smart Chain. But what we can do is we could make Terraport as safe as what it could be. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but back in April last year, the team was hacked, and Terraport had a lot of money stolen from it. Well, it wasn't really stolen from it; it was stolen from the liquidity providers, which is a very important point. So, I think roughly at that time it was around about $4 million of value that was stolen, and we've done everything we can to get that back, and we're still pursuing ways to do that. But the biggest problem that we had is that when the attack happened, I was really fortunate that just the day before the hack, I'd connected with somebody that had got CZ as a connection. So when, just by serendipity, if you like. So a few hours later on, I'd actually put some money into the liquidity pools myself, and I was doing an analysis in terms of what the real returns were to see whether they actually checked what we said there was going to be. And I went to remove my liquidity, and everything went to zero. And I thought, sure, I can't have done that. So I kind of rebooted the app and stuff, and rebooted my computer and stuff. I thought, what's going on here? And got in touch with some of the devs, and we soon became apparent that we'd been hacked, which was absolutely devastating, fantastically devastating, not just for the users, but
My wallet was hacked about a month ago, and I basically lost everything. So I understand completely. Mine was, in fact, I was the vice president of a company. The company closed, and I didn't care because I have crypto. It didn't really matter to me. And so I wake up one morning and I get an alert. And this was, by the way, this has got to be somebody that knew me, but that I got an alert that said that my password, had been used in Germany, presumably through a VPN, no matter what. But it had been used in Germany. So I changed my password immediately, and then I went back to sleep because everything seemed to be fine. And the next thing I know, I woke up the next morning and I was making videos, and I have partnerships with certain people, so I have obligations. So I'm doing a video for one of my people, and I'm like, I see the price has gone down, and I'm like, well, what idiot would sell right now? Like, this is the moment where you would be holding on for dear life. What kind of moron sells right now? And when I hit the button, I looked down. It was me that sold, and I'm like, oh my god. Then I go to another crypto that I have. I haven't even looked at my wallet at this point. Then I go click on another crypto, and they're down too. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I look down, and it's my wallet again. And then I go into my wallet, and it's everything gone. And the important part was, look, it's just crypto. At the end of the day, there's value to it. I can make that back. But for me, it was not having access to the stable coin that I had there. Like, that stable coin is basically what I intended to live off of, and it was gone. So I understand how your heart sinks. I understand the depths of despair that you start to feel when all of the money just disappears and you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sorry to hear that. It's you'll not be the last person to have that as well. It's something that we face within our community on a regular basis. People trying to hack wallets and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, we've been fortunate. We've managed to help a lot of people out over the last couple of years, and usually through kind of undelegations, kind of scams and things like that. But yeah, it's devastating, and yeah. So when the hack kind of happened, was very fortunate. Within a few minutes, we managed to get through to CZ.
Yeah.
And he kind of signposted us, and I think he kind of helped out to some degree to kind of get things kind of blocked in some of the sexes, which is something that we'd done ourselves as well. So I think it was KuCoin, Mex, and Simple Swap. I think they was the big three at the time. So there's a lot of speculation on Twitter that a lot of money gone to Binance and stuff, but it hadn't. It was Simple Swap. However, what we decided to do, because I'd strategized in case we'd ever been hacked, so I'd worked out in advance what I'd do if this had occurred. Just because, like I say, risk management is what I do for a living, so I always think of the things that you don't want to happen. So my strategy was that if a hack happened, let all the money get onto the sexes, because you're not going to get off the blockchain. And if it goes onto a sex, then you've got a chance of actually getting it secured there. And sexes have got a responsibility, and they should know the people that they're dealing with in principle.
Right.
So that's why we didn't tweet a lot about it. We just kept quiet. We thought, let's wait till all the money goes off the chain, and we'd hope we'd got the agreement with the sexes that they wouldn't announce that they'd blocked these accounts so that they would get filled up, and hopefully the hackers would fill them up before they tried to take some money out. That was the strategy. There's not a lot you can really do, really, is there? However, there's a few in the community that decided that that they'd seen the hack going on, and they told said that they'd informed a couple of the sexes, and they just couldn't wait to tell the world what they'd done. But it made things a lot more difficult for us, and we got in touch with these people as well, and we said, please don't tweet this, because all you're doing is telling the hackers what you've done, which means they'll try another way. And so yeah, they didn't follow our request. And one of those was where you've got Rexyz and Vegas. They was the biggest culprits there, if you like. But anyway, people trying to do different things, I guess. So
we were aware of it, by the way. Like, well, that was a big news thing that the liquidity had disappeared, and I mean, and of course, in my position, in our position, when we're out here, all we can go on is what we know, and what we know is what we've seen 100 times before. And to be fair, like, a lot of us just come from this token here. I remember SafeMoon. I mean, Dave Portnoy's out here telling everybody, buy SafeMoon, buy SafeMoon. This is the greatest thing ever. I'm going to put all my money in SafeMoon. The next thing you know, it absolutely rug pulls. And was it Kamadi, or whatever his name is?
Yeah.
He doesn't even have enough money to pay for his attorney as of this morning. But the point is, there are a lot of different tokens and cryptos out here that that happens, and that's because the developer or somebody on the development team has taken the money and they've split. It doesn't mean that the team is bad. It just means that there always seems to be a reason. So as soon as something like that happens, as soon as somebody broadcasts it, then you have a problem. You have a PR problem that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So we was perplexed how this had happened. And I kind of just outlined earlier on how the structure of our team works. And our lead developer was the only person that had access to the GitHub. And you might think that seems odd, but the purpose was the less people have access to it, the less chance there is of anything going wrong. That was the theory. Okay. However, what had happened was the lead dev had subcontracted some work to another contractor. And he provided documentation. He'd done, that kind of doxed himself. And for about 3 or 4 months, this developer's working and providing some really good stuff. However, obviously, he'd set about kind of social engineering the lead dev. Creating it's a very long play to create that trust there. And then when the right opportunity arose, and we kind of struck. So what actually happened was there was about 10 days after we launched, there was a slight irregularity in one of the liquidity pools. Our lead dev would be the best to describe to you, but there's a slight irregularity. And the lead dev picked up on it, and this contractor picked up on it. Obviously, he'd been expecting it. So he said to the lead dev, he says, look, I've picked up, noticed this issue. I developed a patch for it, if you like. And the lead dev looked at it and thought, can see exactly what's gone wrong here. Looked at the patch, looked at, what had kind of been provided as the code, and thought, okay, and slotted it in. So it looked, to an investigator, it looked like the lead dev had kind of, created the issue, if you like. However, hidden in some of the other code, there was some slight alterations, which meant that the hacker could drain the liquidity pools. And was fortunate that Binance provided us with a crypto forensic specialist, if you like, and he helped us work out what had gone wrong. And then he also worked out, in his opinion, who he thought the attackers were, and was told not to tell anybody about it, because I think there was other legal agencies that were working to track these hackers down. Yeah. And there was a massive team of hackers. We was told they've got unlimited resources. You'll never catch them. You'll never get your money back. And they're kind of beyond any kind of jurisdiction. And I think from that description, you can work out who they probably were. But yeah, was asked not to speak about it, which that made it kind of difficult, because the community was jumping to the conclusion that if we didn't say who it was, then it must be us. Right. But no, we was asked not to mention it, so we honoured that. Binance had helped us out, and you've got to be good to your word. But it made the journey back the journey of recovery harder. And actually, we're still recovering these funds. So,
Yeah.
as I said, something that made it very difficult was that, I reported it to the police in the UK. They initially said they wasn't interested. I then went to what you call action fraud in the UK. And then they said that they wasn't interested. You need to go to your police department. I thought I've already been there. So I went back to the police department. They put me in touch with the economic crime department. They said, we need a couple of days to look into it. I said, well, I'd rather, can you not issue like a letter to these sexes or something at the minute, just say freeze these funds? I said, we've got an opportunity here to save a lot of money of people's funds, if you like, or a large amount of people's funds. And what really interesting, and 2 days later, the turnaround said, yeah, it's out of the scope of our department. You need to go back to action fraud. So action fraud said they'll deal it within, I think, 30 days. And in the end, the turnaround said it's nothing really to do with us. I thought, right. So I went to the head of the highest policeman in the country, in the UK, the head of Metropolitan Police. I got in touch with him through LinkedIn. I got in touch with the chief advisor for Interpol on cybersecurity. None of these people, they said they was interested, but a couple of emails exchanged, and that was that. I got in touch with the Serious Fraud Office, National Cybersecurity Agency, the Financial Conduct Authority, Financial Ombudsman, everybody you could think of, and nobody had any interest at all. That absolutely gobsmacked me. But one of the main reasons why they found it difficult was that Terraport didn't have the money stolen from them. Liquidity providers had the money stolen. And we pleaded with the community to report it to the police. Because from the police's point of view, if nobody reports a crime, then there's nothing to investigate. And there's only myself and a couple of others that reported it. And literally, I had about $100 worth in there. I was doing an experiment. So, what I lost compared to, some others was chicken feed. And yeah, we offered, bonus incentives, if you like, in terms of what might, percentage of anything that might get refunded. And there was only one other person really that took an interest, and that was a guy from Norway, and he'd reported it to his place. And they actually went, he travelled all the way around Norway, trying to get them to take it seriously. And in the end, one of them got in touch with the KuCoin, and I think they was really struggling for resources for investigations. And effectively, they came to agreement with the KuCoin that, well, it's probably Terraport team anyway that's probably done the rug, so you're just be giving the money back to the ruggers. And and I thought, never once did they talk to me. We can provide
this is how you think in crypto. Like that's a symptom of a much larger problem, lack of regulation, really. But it is a symptom here of one of those issues where you're guilty until proven innocent when it comes to crypto.
Yes, it looks that way, doesn't it?
Yep.
I'm a professional guy. It's the last thing I want is somebody to think that I'm not. And our team is like this as well. We're all just real honest, ethical people. So it's difficult. For some time, I was on, let's say suicide watch for our team. The lead dev in particular. Each day I'd wake up and I think, I wonder if he's still here. It really, it absolutely destroyed him. Even now, he's very much, traumatized by it. And it's difficult. So, one of the other kind of important kind of points here is that we had actually aimed to get it all, to get Terraport CertiK audited before the hack. And by the way, even if it had been audited, it wouldn't have prevented the hack. It was a different attack vector. Okay. However, just because CertiK was so busy, it meant that we couldn't get it done before the launch. We'd promised the community that we'd launch by a particular day. And we'd also added a lot of packing in there in terms of spare capacity, just in case things run late. But was also getting it can be a very hostile community at times to developers. And we was getting a massive amount of FUD from some kind of, well, if you like, YouTubers and marketers, if you like, in terms of if you don't launch, effectively it shows that you are scammers. And we thought, what do we do? If we don't launch, then it's is that going to threaten a successful launch in the future? And was mindful of people that had bought in pre-sales, and we wanted to protect them, because security isn't just about the code. Security is about how the project's launched and managed as well. So we weighed everything up, and because the GitHub had been guarded so well, we just thought that it was a tolerable risk. As it turned out, well, I've just said how that kind of turned out. Anyway, we learned from it. We're still looking to recover these funds now, by the way, and I'll never stop doing that. And actually, we're working with another police person at the minute, and we found another angle of how we might be able to get all the money back.
Yeah.
So our previous attempts had been, we want the money back from the wallets, putting into the liquidity pool so we can refund everybody that had the money stolen. However, we're looking at it from a slightly different angle, is that if you're a centralized exchange, then you've got duty to comply with anti-money laundering laws.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if you was told at the time that this is stolen money and you allow that to go through your exchange, then actually now you've got a duty that you should refund that. So we're taking that approach now, which could mean that we get everything back. So fingers crossed. So that's the process working on at the minute. Simple swap, to be fair to them. We provided them with all the evidence of the theft, and they returned to us all the money that they managed to freeze. So that was very welcome. It wasn't a massive amount, but it enabled us to kind of rebuild.
Yeah.
Which gave us another opportunity through increase in trading fees to return them money to liquidity providers that way. And I don't know how many attacks there has been actually across the whole of the cryptoverse, if you like, where a decentralized exchange has actually managed to refund those that have been the subject of a hack. I mean, especially early on, but it's something that we want to do. It just seems the right thing to do, and that's what we're about.
All right, so let's flash forward here, and let's kind of bring this to, where do you think Luna Classic is right now? And for me, for my narrative, we've had some, and I know you probably don't want to talk about them because you're a validator yourself, but we've had what appears to a lot of us as investors, as holders, as people who are just watching this ecosystem, we've seen a lot of these people that seem to vote in self-interest as opposed to the better interest of the investors and the blockchain at large, so much so that it seems like they're trying to stifle, not that there's incredible amounts of innovation happening every single day, but they're seeming to stifle the opportunity for that. They're making it more difficult for people to come onto the chain. I know I'm asking a lot here all at once here, but we had the thing with Happy Caddy, which he was the first guy that you met. And, we have the issue here where, Happy Caddy pointed out that one of that Moon Rabbit was being paid $60,000. We don't know, by the way, if Moon Rabbit Inc. is the same as Moon Rabbit LLC, the validator. We don't know they're the same company. However, they both popped up around the same time. And this was October and November of 2022, along with Bilbo Baggins, major fudder, Jebediah Sheckelstein, major fudder. These are guys who were doxing other validators that were doxing members of the community. Like, there's a very sordid sort of affair. And, it turns out in a bankruptcy filing, they're paying something called Moon Rabbit. So weird sort of circumstances. The validators seem to be working against everybody. Here we are. What is this? This is February of 2024. You remember in the Terra Rebels, the first quarter of 2023, we were supposed to see a repeg. So here we are in February 2024. What do you think's going on with the chain? What do you think the path is to a repeg, if it can even be done? And in the event that all of that happens, the big question is, does Terraport Finance become the new anchor protocol that binds and holds this all together as the funding agent, liquidity provider, lender solution for this entire ecosystem?
There's a lot there to unpack, isn't there? Yeah, I'd love to say the answer is 42. But yeah,
for anybody who hasn't seen that, that's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So make sure you go watch that or read the book, please.
There you go. We're of a similar era, I think, aren't we?
Let's unpack the first part. How do you feel about the validators? Are you comfortable with the current
Okay.
selection of validators, or should the investors really look at how the validators are voting and see how they would vote and
Okay.
vote or delegate to who matches your conscience?
Yeah, absolutely. So something that we do within our kind of development group, if you like, is we encourage all our delegators to vote themselves. Okay, for two reasons. One is it engages them, helps give them an interest in politics on the chain. Therefore, that generates a incentive for them to want to learn. That makes education more easy, and therefore what we tend to find with the type of projects and the and how we're involved in the chain is we tend to appeal more to those that have a better understanding of cryptocurrency and stuff. So there's multiple kind of elements there. Another practical point is that you can see on chain how people have voted compared to your vote as a validator. So although we do what we think is right, it doesn't necessarily follow that the delegators to us will necessarily agree. However, we do always try to vote with our conscience and do what's best for the chain. However, it's very easy for the community to be convinced by a certain rhetoric that something's deliverable that isn't. So, for instance, there's a massive burn narrative out there that, oh, if we increase the burn tax to 1.5%, well, we're going to go to the moon by next Friday. It's unfortunately it's never going to happen, and people, in my opinion, are taking advantage of others. It's I don't think that's right at all. I don't think it's ethical in the slightest. However, we've got freedom of choice, and there's freedom of opinion. And one person's bad actor is someone else's freedom fighter. Okay, so there is this view, and there's videos and various things out there of people that are considered by some parties as being bad actors. I tend not to try to get involved in this because our team has set about trying to rescue Terra Classic, and that needs builders. And whether you like the builders or not, a builder's a builder. And that's got to bring some value if they actually do build something. If they say they're going to build something and they don't, well, it's maybe just leading people to the garden path. But that's maybe a slightly different discussion. So in terms of validators, I certainly think that you should delegate with one that shares your political views. I think you should look at how reliable they are. You mentioned about Moonrabbit there. Well, when I looked in a Telegram group, I think it was the Terra Telegram group, just a couple of days ago, Chris Amani had said that Moonrabbit Inc. and Moonrabbit as a validator were different entities. And
That's Terra Luna, by the way, for those of you that are, it's Luna 2 that he's referring to.
Yeah, sorry, Luna. What did I say?
You went into the Terra
Telegram. Right, yes, so Luna 2. That's how I kind of got. So I went into the Luna 2 Telegram. Chris Amani there, the chief exec of TFL, and he, stated himself that that they weren't related. So, I mean, you can state whatever you like, can't you? But that's what the guy said, and to some extent, you've got to take the words as being honest, haven't you? However, so whether it's just a coincidence, I don't know. But either way, I mean, from my point of view, I've really not bothered how another group is funded. If they can actually deliver something useful for the chain, great. That's great for everybody. It's no concern of mine how they're funded, really. However, when you've got maybe entities that are spreading lies and FUDs, I mean, we get a massive amount of it against our organisation. I mean, it's horrendous. It's saddening to see as well. It's just so disappointing. I mean, I've never come across anything like this in any other working environment I've been into, but this is the place we are. But what's more sad is that you get people that follow these fudders and people that are talking with authority, even though they're based on very little facts. So, for instance, I'll give you a real good example of this. The Joint L1 Task Force, which is comprised of 3 or 4 developers, L1 developers, they submitted a proposal just a few weeks ago for a quarterly kind of roadmap of what they was going to deliver.
I think it was 60,000 in funding for their continued work.
That's right. Yeah. Personally, I thought it was reasonable. what is unknown to a lot of people is that team pays, I think, is it $9,000 a quarter to maintain the servers
Yeah.
to deliver their work. And the last quarter they paid for that out of their own pocket. So if you say that 2 quarters comes to 18,000, then their upfront payment of 25,000 effectively covered the next quarter. So so looking at from one perspective, I didn't think it was too bad. And also they've always delivered. They might not have always delivered in the time frame. They might have missed the odd thing off, but they've always, in the end, gone and put it right. And they've took that professional approach. I mean, any professional out there will know that things don't always go to plan, and you need a plan B. You need a strategy. But the professional that always delivers in the end is the one that tends to keep the customer and keep the customer happy. Although you'd prefer, to get everything right first time. So there was a lot of people spreading FUD about the joint L1 task force in terms of saying they haven't done this, they haven't done that. I looked at a list that had been provided. I gathered together a list of items that was claimed that the task force hadn't delivered, and I got on a video call with Vin, who was, let's say, the leader of the task force. And I said, can we go through each of these individually, and can you provide me with evidence that they've been done? And we spent 2 or 3 hours on this video call, and he went through everything, and everything was done. He provided all the evidence. I even went on to pass this on to, I think I posted it on our TG account, which is Terra Vita community. And I can remember passing it to all nodes as well, and to one or two other validators that had made it clear that they was unsure whether they delivered or not. And I thought, well, let's help them spread that kind of evidence, if you like. And I invited people. I said, look, you tell me what they haven't delivered, and I'll go and find out whether they delivered it or not, if you ain't got that contact. And nobody could give me anything that they haven't delivered, but they'll still say now they haven't delivered, but they have done. So it's another issue there was that we'd got the paper job proposal that had come out, which had been accepted, which was a good idea. However, in that proposal, in the documentation, it specifically said this is for guidance. And Genuine Labs, who'd put a proposal up just prior to that, they'd not quite met all this guidance, but they'd got their proposal voted through. So the L1 task force, they'd put their proposal up, and it didn't quite meet the guidance either, maybe in a slightly different way. So I thought that there was a precedent that had been made that would allow Vin and the L1 task force to have their proposal accepted. However, you'd got alternative interpretations of the same guidance, and this, I think, was the other aspect that led to their proposal not being accepted. So I think that there was some people would say these would be bad actors. From their perspective, they'd probably say, well, I've got a very good reason for voting against these things. But it seemed to me that you've got people that kind of, I don't know, seem to put barriers in the way to progress for whatever the reasons are. I don't know. There must reasons. Most people have got reasons for everything they do, haven't they?
So let's take it one step further and let's go with Repeg. Where do you land on? Because I'm not a proponent of any type of burn that costs anything, that's going to kill a chain no matter what. I've come out, we're not a tight knit community here on YouTube, by the way. I should point that out. I don't know or have relations with many of these other people that are part of any of these other chains or any of these other conversations. So there are people out here like Matthew Perry that are constantly pushing for burns. There are people out here that just constantly tell you that, we got to burn more tokens. We got to do this and that at your cost, by the way. Like that's the part that they never revealed to you. And I think it's disingenuous for them to do that. But at your cost, why don't you just throw your tokens into the fire? But what I do think is that a fee burning mechanism in which there is something created in a repeg has some fascinating implications. When I look at Luna, originally pegged, I think it was, I want to say before the collapse started, which was, I want to say April of 2022. But before the collapse from May of 20, something like that, or August of 2020 or September of 2020, until the collapse, it had burned from 1 billion tokens down to 330 million. So it had burned 66%. So I think a lot of
Mm.
people have been excited about the opportunity to use some sort of repeg, which also, I think one of the most recent proposals included something like a spread tax to originally peg Terra, or let's call it USTC, I guess at this point, to 2 cents and then 3 cents and then 4 cents, and then create a value. So there was some back and forth. Where do you land on that? What do you think of the opportunity? And is there anybody that you know of really that's working on it? Is there something to this, or are we all just as are we kidding ourselves at this point, or is there something working?
Um, okay, it's a very passionate subject, this, isn't it?
Yes.
Um, and I think it's the type of subject that very much divides the community. Many people would say that those that are sitting on the dream of the repeg, I'll call it a dream just for lack of other words at the minute, are probably less informed than some that are maybe in another camp. However, as I said before, part of our goal within our group is that Terra Vita is set up to bring life to Terra. Okay, make it a lively place and bring sustained life. So that's what Terra Vita means. Okay, so what that does is it attracts people to our way of thinking. Okay, so we've been really fortunate that we've got lots of people that we're connected with some very diverse skill sets. And one of them is we've got a group of people that we're working very closely with on re-enabling market module. And it's the market module that allows the swap and burn mechanism between USTC and LUNC, or anything else you want to set it up to.
Yep.
And as part of that, we're looking to return the ecosystem back to the status that it was before the DPEG, if you like. Maybe not with the same amount of tokens, but in terms of as a working environment and working system. And I think this is the important thing. And when you in your question, you highlight this really well. People need to understand what are the value, what are the elements of the Terra Classic ecosystem that are really valuable. And having a burn and mint mechanism is immensely valuable. And having a stable currency where it maybe isn't always 100% aligned to the dollar or the euro or whatever it may be, but it's stable enough that if you get paid for it, paid in that currency, that by the time you've got it into your local bank or whatever you want to do with it, maybe pay some employees or contributors, but it's going to be pretty much worth the same as what it was when you got it. And with a volatile currency, you can't really operate a business on a volatile currency. Like a validator, if you withdraw your validator rewards, within an hour, they could have gone down 35%. It's just not, it just doesn't lend itself to creating a stable ecosystem, financial ecosystem. So having a stable currency connected to LUNC, I think, is really important. I think there's lots of ways, in theory, to get USTC to be worth $1. Now, there's some people say repeg in terms of, well, it's worth 2 cents. Well, let's make it worth 2.5 cents and then 3 cents. And we'll gradually work its way up that way. To do that and I think that's the basis of what the USTC repeg team was working on. However, I'm unsure what the progress of that was. I didn't, they used to tweet a lot, and there'd be a reasonable amount of engagement with the community, but I didn't really see much of what they delivered. And I didn't. I think they'd worked on some kind of test mechanisms and things like this. However, I got the impression that the sexes weren't really interested.
Not at all.
However,
I don't think that they are. However,
since then, there's another opportunity that's arisen, and that since then, Terraport has relaunched, and Terraport has been a decentralized exchange, can swap and trade currency without a centralized exchange, and that brings in more opportunities. Okay, so my personal view is, I'm not The team that we've got working on this, we have a kind of shared understanding, and that is we work on it, and we don't necessarily tweet about it and talk to the community about it, because we're mindful that at some point there could be a governance proposal that we need to put up, and we need the community to make a decision on that based on facts and tests and data and all this kind of stuff, rather than what they've heard about on Twitter for the last 3
Right.
months. So that's why we took, that in terms of risk, if we manage to get put a process together, an approach together to peg USTC, get the market module up and running again, so we can burn vast amounts of LUNC without it taking it from, without taking the value out, if you like, then I think that is the way to go about it. However, if that means that we need the community to agree on a particular proposal, then it needs to be on the basis of the benefits of that proposal, if you like, let's say, rather than what others have come up with. So so my personal view is that you could do this very easily, and this approach has been proposed many times. Like I say, I'm not going to say this is the approach that we're necessarily working on, but was looking at lots of different things, different approaches, and one of them is simply do a reverse split. So if USTC is worth $2 or 2 cents, sorry, do a 50-to-1 split, and then for every 50 USTC you got one that's worth $1, and then you can get the market module up and running again, and that will start burning a vast amount of LUNC. And if you think that USTC really should be a stable currency, and actually LUNC should be the speculative one, then actually that lends itself to how the ecosystem was actually designed. However, before you do anything like this, you've got to make sure you've got a thriving ecosystem as well. You've got to have demand for the currencies. So it's not just as simple as turning something on and kind of hoping for the best. So that's one approach.
So let me interrupt here and say that's where a lot of people, I think, I think there's a massive disagreement fundamentally about when like when you say a 50-to-1 split, what you're telling. I mean, what there's a lot of speculative people here with voting power who are like, I absolutely do not want you to take my for my 2 cent Terra. I don't want if I have 50 of them, I don't want you to just give me one back because I'm still at 2 cents. I think would it be, and I don't speak to these teams, so I have no idea fundamentally if it's at all possible. But in my mind, the way that this works is simplified. You go from, in our systems here, in our ecosystems, not on centralized exchanges, you go in our ecosystem for the moment, and we incentivize, like you said, you have to build. I understand that, but so every time you go from Luna Classic, then you go to USTC. That's your stable, and it's pegged to a specific amount, and it's based on how much there is, based upon the available liquidity, and it can eventually be moved up as we burn tokens. But every time in the old process, every time you bought USTC, which was Terra at the time, every time you bought, it was minted. Every time you sold, it was destroyed. But a portion of that was used to buy a little bit of Luna, and then it burned a little bit of Luna every single time. Couldn't this also be a reversal in which, if you buy USTC, you do not mint USTC, you buy it from the pool, and then when you sell, then a portion of what you sell is used both to burn some USTC along the way, and then also a portion is used to buy Luna Classic and then burn that until we reach a level of stability with USTC, and then we can like flip that into whatever those fees were, could then be used into burning purely the Luna Classic. Like that to me seems like the thing that makes the most sense. I don't know how complicated that would be,
Yeah.
but that seems like the logical step.
Well, that's another option, and that's something else we'd actually looked at as well. Like I say, I'm not going to say which one we're kind of falling on the side of at the minute, because we're going through kind of testing and stuff like that at the minute. Yeah, and there's also a third option, isn't there? And that's you create another USTC currency,
Yep.
USTC2, and maybe that burns LUNC and USTC.
It has to be called
Um,
2STC. It couldn't be USTC.
yeah. But also, there's other stable currencies on Terra as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
So, for instance, you could open one up for the euro if you like.
yeah,
You know, I think there's a lot of people that are emotionally tied to the vision of a currency being worth a dollar. Well, the dollar isn't actually a pegged currency, is it? It fluctuates on a daily basis with other currencies around the world. So I don't really believe that there is any such thing as a stable currency. I think it's a figment of imagination. Um, However, as a goal, having a stable-ish currency that retains its value, there's a lot of um, you know there's a lot of value in that. Let's say.
yeah.
Um, so yes, so there's a lot of things to think of there. Um, but I think something that you pointed out earlier on, which I think is absolutely vital, is that just because you're burning a currency doesn't mean you're adding value to it.
Right.
So something that we're involved with is Terra Casino. I don't. Have you heard of Terra
Yeah.
Casino?
Yes, I have.
So Terra Casino burns a lot of LUNC on the chain.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of what you need to burn to make a fantastic difference, it's a long way off that. Let's be realistic. However, for let's say a utility that can burn LUNC without you essentially being charged for it, i.e., when people traditionally talk about burning LUNC, they say, as you said earlier on, you chuck 10% of your LUNC away, and then everybody's going to be better. But the person that's telling you this is probably keeping all theirs. But with how Terra Casino works is that if you play in the casino or bet or do trading or whatever it is that you do there, and you treat it as entertainment, and you think, okay, I'm going to £50 or $50 in the casino tonight. I'm going to have some entertainment. If I come out with something, great. If I don't, well, I've had some entertainment for the evening. A bit like going in the UK, like going to the pub. You don't expect to come home with more money than what you went with, but you hope to have had a good time. If somebody else buys all the rounds, then that's great. You might come out quits. Quits with some stories, if you like. So, and that's what the casino is built to do. It's built there to entertain. Okay. So you can use Bitcoin, you can use Ethereum, USDT, and various other coins. I mean, you'll soon be able to use Terra again in there. And what happens is that when you transfer money across the Terra Classic blockchain into the casino, then that generates fees from the burn tax. So some gets burned that way. However, every time you place a bet, 0.2% of that bet gets burned as well. Okay, so if you're betting in Bitcoin and you bet $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, then 0.2% of that will actually be put to one side, and then so much time later, that will then be used to trade for LUNC, and then that LUNC will be burned. So that's adding value back into the ecosystem. Now,
Absolutely.
it's pretty much, other than Terraport, is pretty much the only application that that I've seen that actually adds value to the ecosystem. If you're just purposely planning to burn somebody a percentage of money that somebody's moved around, then actually not adding value back. And if you
Right.
think of LUNC as being worth, I don't know, what was it? It's about 600 million now, something like that.
650 today. Yeah.
650. So, if it's worth 650 million, and let's say we managed to burn 10% of it. Let's not dwell too much on the maths or the realities of it. But let's just assume something happened. We could burn 10% just now. Well, now you've got a chain that's got, let's say, instead of roughly 7 trillion tokens, you've got one that's got 6.3 trillion tokens. Well, that's great. So therefore, we should all be better off. However, really, what you've had is one that has had 7 trillion tokens that was worth 650 million. And now you've got something with 6.3 trillion tokens that's only worth 585 million, if my maths is right. You get the picture anyway. So actually, you've got the same amount of tokens that's worth the same amount of value. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you burn tokens that it's going to go up in value. You need to make sure that the value of the chain is still worth 650 million, even though the tokens have reduced. So therefore, you have to create a buyback and burn incentive, if you like. And I think the market module, now we kind of just discussed it earlier there, I think that does help help deliver that.
Yeah. So then the final question would be, do you see Terraport becoming something of the Anchor protocol? I mean, let's face it, the funding, the lifeblood, anybody can argue what they thought Terra and Luna was, but this thing was run and funded through Anchor protocol. Do you guys consider that perhaps you guys assume that position and that you become the lender that makes the, I mean, that was really what turned this into such an attractive option, and that's really why so many people during a bear market, I might add, were still pumping this is the only token that was pumping during a bear market.
Mm.
And it was the lending opportunity that was presented by Anchor Protocol. So do you consider that's where Terraport fits into the ecosystem, or is there somebody else out there that does that and you guys have a different lane?
That's an interesting one. I don't think we'd be offering 20%. Let's put it that way. So when we set up Terravita, we did a lot of analysis and worked out what we thought the chain would need to thrive. And one element was to enable money to come into the ecosystem, hence a DEX was useful. And Terraport Finance, excuse me, is far more than a DEX. There's a lot more elements to it. And we've just released a new roadmap as well. And we're well on with that as well. So another part of that was that you need to enable builders to be able to build. They need to be able to get a leg up, and they need to be able to operate sustainably. If a builder can be sustainable, then he can build more things. Okay. And also he can deliver service that's got a long-term potential, and therefore you can grow. So sustainability is massively important. So as part of that, Terraport has a token factory, and we're working on a launch pad at the minute, which is pretty close to being done. And this kind of helps with helps builders. So that helps builders get into Terra Classic. Another problem that needs to be dealt with is the burn tax. The burn tax, despite what the community was told, has been a big barrier to many building on Terra Classic. However, it's not been insurmountable. So Terraport works with the burn tax. It would work without the burn tax as well. You could just set the perimeter to 0. So it's not something that can't be overcome. But one of the other big problems of it, other than the technical element, is that you have to factor in 0.5% into every transaction you do. And that can mean the difference between something being viable as a application and not being viable. Okay. So there's moves at the minute to change the burn tax to a tax to gas system. Yes. That could help. Another thing that we're looking at is enabling Terra Classic to be as easy to be built on as Ethereum. Okay. And that means getting documentation in place, and also, working on some software to enable that to be enable builders to be able to build a lot easier as well. So it's about removing all the barriers to building a thriving ecosystem. Like I say, we've got all the community here. We just need the shops being built. So let's help the shop builders build the shops. Okay. So in terms of Terraport and Terravita's kind of role in this, that's what we're trying to do. We like to see that. We'd like to consider that we're helping facilitate growth. Okay. That doesn't mean other people can't as well. And the more developers there are in Terra Classic, the better. I mean, I'm in talks with 2 or 3 people at the minute, setting up a team. We can call it whatever we like. Think of it as an onboarding team to help developers that are coming into the ecosystem to get over some of the issues to do with Terra Classic that maybe don't seem quite apparent. And all these things are provided kind of free of charge, because what makes our team and there is some other teams like this stand out from some of maybe other well-known groups is we don't get payments from the community pool. We will never ask for a payment from the community pool. We're self-funded. What we're interested in is Terra Classic growing in value and LUNC growing in value. And when that grows in value, then that's when we get our payday, if you like. So, we're putting our money where our mouth is. If we don't trust in what we're building, well, maybe we need sponsorship from somebody else, but we believe in what we're building. And we believe that, if you work hard, you get the rewards for that. So, and this, like I say, it's another reason why we try to get on with everybody in the ecosystem. It's very easy to make enemies, but it's not always easy to maintain kind of relationships and friends. But the more you've got, the more people tend to get on, if you like.
Yeah.
But in terms of a lending protocol, I mean, I think there's one out there that's been worked on. I'm not going to say it's directly something we're focusing on just at this minute in our team. We're working our way through our kind of roadmap. But I think it'd be something that would be attractive for the chain. I think if we're going to do that, we need to have a stable coin first. Now, whether that's USTC or 2CT, there's going to be a tongue twister, isn't there?
2STC.
Yeah, another one. Yeah. So, but all these things, I think, I don't necessarily see them as problems. I see them as milestones that we just need to reach and get past. And I think once people stop trying to get payouts from the community pool and work on what needs to be done, I think there'll be a lot more trust that returns to the chain. If that then means that, let's say, LUNC goes up, maybe to where it was before as a previous high of 3 zeros and a 6, something like that, or even if it's 3 zeros and probably a 4 or a 5, then validator rewards would actually increase in value as well. Maybe not in terms of percentage, but in terms of the actual value that you're getting. That then helps make that more sustainable. USTC there as well. That would have more of a sustained value, let's say. So then you can start to run, more traditional style organisations from it. So yeah, I think that's where kind of Terribly kind of sits. So there's a lot of things that we think of that I don't think others really get involved with. So, for instance, we've got arranged for another kind of backup to the chain. If all those infrastructure fails or others, we look at risk management, things like that. Like I say, we've got a good relationship with TFL as well in terms of various kind of employees that we speak with. We've got connections with things like Axler Network. So we've got cross-chain kind of pairing set up with there, there's a lot of groundwork that's been done by some fantastic people within our team, which I'm in awe of some of the things they can do. They'll probably say the same thing about me, but I don't know what they're looking at. But they're apps. I've got to say, I mean, we're really lucky to have the people in the team we have. And there's people in our team that others don't know about because we take security extremely seriously. So what we do is we KYC people within our team that work alongside our team, but help kind of deliver to the community because we want that security that, for instance, that the blockchain is going to be functioning correctly, and we just want to reduce every risk there is to a tolerable level. So another aspect there is, we've got a working relationship with Certic, and the Certic have agreed with us, should we want to do this, to set up a Terra Classic specific KYC process, and that's something that's kind of in the governance news at the minute, if you like. Some proposals are out that have the best possible intention, but maybe need refining a little bit. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, then I think that wraps it up. Rex, I appreciate you for taking the time. I know you got plenty of things that you could have been doing today. I think that the community really needs to hear this from people, and look, you're not the president of Luna Classic. I'm not the PR guy for Luna Classic, but people need to hear from validators. People need to understand some of the underpinnings of what's really going on in this ecosystem, because the great part of decentralization is there's nobody in charge. And the bad part of decentralization is the same thing. Nobody's in charge. So you have no official website. You have no official communication platform. You have sometimes you have no idea what's really happening in this ecosystem, and nobody's really collating this information and presenting to people in a package that they can readily understand. We're all just kind of doing the best we can. So I appreciate you taking the time to give us some in-depth analysis of what's going on behind closed doors, how Terraport fits into this ecosystem, and, you know, at least an idea that there are people working on the things that we're passionate about. I mean, that I think is important. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. And and like I said, one of the first things that we kind of spoke about was that was the driving force that kind of got me into this, to actually kind of reach out to developers in the first place. Appreciating that the community didn't realise what was actually going on, if there was anything going on. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, for somebody like yourself as well, I think you're really important for the community, because you're somebody that's independent as okay, you've got your YouTube channel and your business. But in terms of being separate from the governance,
Yeah.
you're not swayed one way or the other. You can just deliver things how they are. You're not after delegations for your validator. You're after essentially the facts for your listeners.
Well, classy crypto, Jesus, he was a friend of mine, and I'm not going to say that he was corrupted by being in that position, but I felt it was a corruptible position. So at no point have I ever considered becoming a validator myself, because it changes the way I look at things, and I'd rather be on the outside looking in and reporting, as opposed to being involved in it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Now, Classy for a short while worked as part of our team, and his role was, because I like Classy, he got a lot of energy, and for a young guy, I mean, he's very mature for his years, and he just he brought an element of kind of excitement to everything he did, and I really liked that. But something that I thought was very important for the community was getting a consistent voice out there of how big the community really is.
Yes.
So the trouble is that most projects will promote themselves. So within Terra Vita, what we want to do is we want to promote the ecosystem. So Class's role within the ecosystem, within Terra Vita, was to promote the ecosystem. So we asked him to go around and find as many projects as possible and just promote them. And, every now and again, maybe promote us, but it's more about promoting those. So he was actually, so that's what he was kind of employed to do. And if you look at Frag, who's massively valuable in our team, he's tasked with a very similar role when he's not doing his L1 work, which is to support anybody in the community that needs help with building. So one was about the promotional element, the other was about the technical element, and Terraport's kind of delivering something in between, because we ain't going to build our way out of this slump as individual teams. Yeah. We're going to build it out by being a lot of teams working on the same problem.
Right. Well, then I think that it's a fantastic opportunity. Everybody loves the comeback story. Luna Classic so far has been it's been happening in a bear market, but it is my firm belief that this is going to be one of the most epic comeback stories that you've seen in the face of crypto, and I'm just happy that we're all going to be part of it.
Well, we are part of it, and I think as a comeback, I mean, let's face it. Last time I looked, we was in the top 100 coins on CMC. Yes. We'd gone down to zero. Like I say, I can remember sat at home watching 8 zeros and having a cup of tea and thinking, now what happens? And then we've gone up to being worth $650 million. How many chains out there would like to be worth $650 million? And especially one that's actually dead, as a lot of people like to call us. So we're a dead chain that's worth $650 million. There's something that doesn't quite add up there. And of course, we're not dead. We're thriving. We've just got a long way to go. And I think we're going to do it.
I think so too. All right, guys, you heard it right here. So if you want to check out Luna Classic, check it out. Make sure you go check out the Terra token, terraport.finance. If you are looking, I'll put the links in the description down below. And remember, this is not financial advice. My name's Bleaves. I am always right. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.